Matt Armstrong just bought a Bugatti Veyron. Not from a dealership, not from some private collector with white gloves and a velvet rope, from a repossession company, for a fraction of what it's worth. And buried inside it was a secret Bugatti never wanted anyone to find. There's a part number stamped on a component inside this $2 million hypercar. Trace that number back far enough, and it doesn't lead to some secretive atelier in Molsheim, France, where artisans hand-finish components under a microscope. It leads to a Volkswagen Lupo, a city car that sells for a few £1,000s on AutoTrader, the kind of car your nan might drive to Tesco on a Tuesday. And that's just the beginning of what Matt Armstrong found buried inside his Bugatti. When you spend $2 million on a car, you believe you're buying something no other machine on earth contains. You believe every bolt, every seal, every component was engineered exclusively for that car and that car alone. So what happens when one man, armed with a socket set, a camera, and zero fear, pulls back the curtain and shows the world what's actually inside? What happens when he proves that the $25,000 annual service your Bugatti dealership charges can be done for roughly $1,600? By the end of this, you'll never look at the supercar industry the same way again. And Bugatti is not happy about it. But before Matt could expose anything, he had to get his hands on the car. The Bugatti Veyron needs no introduction. When Volkswagen Group pushed it into production in 2005 at its facility in Molsheim, it was the most complex road car ever built. A quad-turbocharged W16 engine, essentially two V8s fused together, sending over 1,000 horsepower to all four wheels, with a top speed of 253 miles per hour once the Super Sport arrived in 2010. Only 450 were ever built before the final car, La Finale, rolled off the line in 2015. These aren't cars. They're rolling monuments. So when a repossession firm offered Matt a Veyron, he knew two things immediately. First, this was an extraordinary opportunity. Second, it was going to be nothing but trouble. He bought it anyway, for significantly less than market value. The exterior was stunning. The interior barely touched. And the engine started on the first turn of the key, the W16 firing up with a sound that stopped people in their tracks. Then the car just sat there. It wouldn't move. The gearbox was completely locked, no gears at all. And that's when the first monster crawled out from under the bed. The $350,000 fuse. In the supercar world, when your gearbox fails, there's a very specific routine. Call the dealership, get a quote. Bugatti's quote came back between $350,000 and $400,000 to fix a gearbox on a car he'd just bought. Most people would have stopped right there. Matt didn't. He started pulling the car apart himself, tracing wires, running diagnostics, working the problem like a detective. And what he found should make your jaw drop. The entire system had shut down because of one blown fuse, a $3 part you could pick up at any auto parts shop. Bugatti's authorized network was prepared to charge $350,000 for a new gearbox the car never actually needed, because nobody had checked the fuse first. If that's what slipped through on a gearbox fault, what else might be hiding in this car? The fuse wasn't the only problem. The Veyron had a persistent engine misfire jumping across one cylinder bank, coolant leaking steadily from the front radiator, a faulty fuse box, and a string of electrical gremlins waiting in the shadows. So Matt did the reasonable thing. He called Bugatti directly and asked to buy the parts, filters, seals, fluids, the basics needed for a proper service. Bugatti said no. Not a casual no either, a deliberate, carefully worded refusal that revealed exactly how this company operates. Parts would not be sold to anyone outside their authorized network. The car would have to be physically delivered to Bugatti and serviced only by their own technicians. In other words, you can't buy the parts, you can't work on the car yourself, you can't take it to an independent specialist. Your only option is to hand the car over and write an enormous check. Matt's response was simple. If Bugatti wouldn't supply the parts, he'd source them himself. Before the biggest revelation of all, consider what happened with the speed key. The Veyron's top speed mode, the system that drops the ride height, adjusts the aerodynamics, and unlocks the full 253 mile/hour capability, requires a special secondary key. An official replacement from Bugatti costs a fortune. Rather than pay it, Matt examined how the mechanism actually worked, and discovered that beneath all the mystique, it was built around a fairly conventional mechanical key. So he had a locksmith cut him a custom one. A YouTuber in a UK workshop reverse-engineered access to one of the most exclusive systems in the automotive world, simply because Bugatti's official channel left him no other choice. All of this led Matt to one question Bugatti's marketing department would very much prefer nobody ever asked. When you pay for a Bugatti service, are you paying for the engineering and the labor and the parts, or are you paying for the badge? He needed a standard annual service: oil, filters, spark plugs, fluids. On an ordinary car, that's a job costing a few £100s at a local garage. Bugatti's official quote for the same service on a Veyron, roughly $25,000 to $27,000. So Matt started tracing part numbers. And he found things Bugatti headquarters never wanted made public. The gearbox's accumulator tanks turned out to be identical to the ones fitted in a Volkswagen Lupo. Bugatti charged around $617 each, over $1,200 for the pair. The Volkswagen equivalent, about $250 total. The 16 spark plugs feeding that enormous W16 were standard NGK units, available for around $22 each through normal channels. Bugatti's price, $57 per plug, nearly $1,000 for a full set versus roughly $350 sourced directly. The 16 ignition coils were identical to parts used in a Volkswagen Phaeton and a Bentley Continental GT. Bugatti charged $245 each, almost $4,000 for the full set, plus over $6,600 in quoted labor just to fit them. The gearbox pump traced back to an Audi A6 all-road, priced at roughly $1,400 through Audi versus Bugatti's quote of $3,600. Matt didn't fit cheap knockoffs. He found the actual original manufacturers and bought directly from them, cutting Bugatti's markup out entirely. Matt's total service bill came to about $1,600, on a job Bugatti quotes at $25,000 to $27,000. That's a saving of over 90%, achieved simply by refusing to accept that the components inside a Bugatti are somehow magic. Not every part swap went smoothly. A couple of sensors gave him real trouble, and he had to transplant internal elements between housings to get a working unit. But piece by piece, the car came together. And Bugatti's response to all of this? Mostly silence. The one thing they did address publicly was 3D printed parts, explaining that extreme speeds demand manufacturing tolerances aftermarket solutions can't match. That argument has real merit for structural and aerodynamic components. At 250 miles an hour, a failure isn't an inconvenience, it's catastrophic. But spark plugs are spark plugs. Accumulator tanks built for a Lupo do the same sealing job in a Veyron. The safety argument doesn't extend to the parts bin. This isn't really about one car. Every high-end manufacturer runs some version of this playbook: closed parts ecosystems, authorized only servicing, rebadged components priced as if they were bespoke. It works because most owners can absorb a $25,000 bill without blinking, and most don't have a workshop, a camera, and an audience watching every step. Matt Armstrong has all three, and so does fellow YouTuber Mark McCann, who hit nearly identical walls rebuilding his own Veyron. The pattern isn't accidental. It's deliberate architecture, built to keep parts revenue locked inside the official network. Now someone has documented exactly how that system works, with part numbers and receipts anyone can check. The misfire isn't fully resolved. There's still a question mark over the fuel system after the car briefly lost power 150 miles into a test drive. The story isn't finished. But what's already been proven doesn't need a tidy ending to matter. A $3 fuse replaced a $350,000 gearbox that was never actually broken. A locksmith's key unlocked a system Bugatti treats as proprietary. A service costing roughly $1,600 did the job Bugatti quotes at $25,000. And the components inside one of the world's most celebrated hypercars trace back to a Volkswagen city car, an Audi estate, and a Phaeton sedan. None of that makes the Veyron a bad car. It isn't. The engineering is genuinely extraordinary, the performance real, the achievement of squeezing 1,000 horsepower out of a W16 into something that still drives like a sports car is remarkable. What Matt Armstrong proved is that the mystique surrounding it, the idea that only Bugatti can touch it, only Bugatti can supply it, only Bugatti can charge for it, is, at least in part, manufactured. The car is real. The engineering is real. The markup is a choice. And now you know it.